Some people thrive on conflict. On the other hand, understand and realize that conflict has its place, but at some point there needs to be a resolution within that conflict. I'm Dr. Steve, and I'm going to show you exactly a few simple steps and tricks that you can do to reduce any conflict situation. Are you ready? Let's get connected. When I've done conflict resolution with groups, there usually is 10 or 12 or 15 people that are worked up, the emotions are high, the defenses are up, people nattering back and forth, being challenged with structures within an organization, the rules, people feel limited in terms of how they can express themselves. And this is true for a group or even two people within a conflict. There's defensiveness, there's guardedness, and oftentimes there's just a few babbling heads back and forth, just trying to defend each other's position. And ultimately, that might be fun for a very short period of time, but it becomes quite tiring, drains energy resources, becomes frustrating, and ultimately leads to demises of relationships and breakdowns. So how do we resolve this conflict? How do we reduce the amount of conflict that we have with maybe one person or a group of individuals? Let me show you some steps in which we do to take care of this. The first thing that we do within a group is we just stop talking. And that might sound really simple, but when you talk, the mind keeps going or defending its position. So the first thing that we do is just stop talking. See? And when we stop talking, it actually creates a space in which something new can develop. When you're bantering back and forth and there's no space or gap between the dialogue or conversation, there's really no room for any change. And so by stopping the talking, we actually create a gapped space for something new to emerge. Well, in this gapped space, what do we look to do? Well, we have a space. Let's ask some new questions, like what's really going on? What's it going to take to really truly resolve this challenge? Why are we so defensive? What positions are we defending? What's really happening? So you've created this gap space by stop talking. Now you fill the gap space with better questions. Once you have new questions, people become more aware and more curious as to not only what their own positions are, but then what are the positions of other people and what are they actually trying to defend? What objective, what's the common objective amongst other people is another thing that you can do to fill that gap space. What are we all here for? What are you and I here for? How are we interacting in relationship? What are we doing together? What's really behind our defensiveness is when you're yelling at me and I'm yelling at you. Who are we being? What are we doing in that moment of our conflict? What are you defending? Those are really important questions to ask. When you ask those questions, they start to dissolve some of the armor, the defensiveness, the guarded tensions that we put up both in our body and our mind to resist any type of change. So one, we stop talking. Two, by creating this gap space, we ask new questions and we get curious in that space. The third is we look at what's the benefit to the whole group if we do resolve this. In the third step, we got to move from the mind into the heart and see ourselves within the collective. So if you're working with one other person, it's like, what's in it for us? What's the win-win for both of us here? And when you start thinking about the win-win of thinking of them as well as yourself, you're starting to open up that heart space in order to move towards a resolution. If you're in a group setting, you open up the heart space, say, what's in it for them? What's in it for me? What's in it for us together that we can do? And what's the common objective? What's the common thread? Not what we're disagreeing on, but what's the common thread of an objective that we can move towards so that we're all working as a cohesive unit together. So let me just kind of repeat those three again. The first is just stop talking and create a space. The second is let's ask questions in that gap space. And the third is we open up the heart center to consider the collective objective as to how we could all meet each other's needs, not only get along, but move towards a common objective that we can all work for together. So I hope this helps. I'd love to hear any input that you might have. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to stevefonso.com, where we have tons of information on resilience, health, and well-being in relationships. Look forward to seeing you there.